So welcome everybody to our Monday night empowerment session. Tonight we're going to be talking about something that is actually a favorite topic of mine. It has to do with reducing inflammation. And one of the reasons I like this so much is because of the impact it has on so many different people's health. So let's start off with hearing what Lisa Tucker has to say.
Hi, my name is Lisa Tucker. Valerie asked me to give a short little testimony on my experience, my personal experience with chronic pain and inflammation, and as that relates to Soul Naturals. So several years ago, I got really sick. I was diagnosed with a couple of autoimmune diseases, and the pain was just debilitating. I literally could not do the things that I normally love doing, and I was bedridden a lot of the time. And I learned in that season that had everything to do with my gut health and the inflammation going on in my body, that it was just rampant and it was causing all these other problems to come up. And so I found I was introduced to Soul, and within about 3 months, I started to notice a real difference. And it's because we were targeting healing my gut and balancing my body. And I learned that in that process, that's when my symptoms started to disappear, when I became in balance and my gut was healthy. And it did take time. It was not a quick fix, a magic bullet. It took the better part of a year to get my gut into just a really good place where I could eat most things and I don't suffer. But now, 6 years later, on my programs that I would not give up for anything, I am pain-free. I rarely ever have pain, and I exercise a lot. I'm a runner and just do a lot of activities, and I don't have any of that pain I used to and the inflammation I used to that was so debilitating. So thank you, Valerie, for asking me to share my story. I always love to be able to help people.
I am so appreciative that Lisa was willing to share her story, because there are so many people out there that think that once they get this type of pain, this debilitating pain, that they are stuck with it for life. Because really the most options that are provided for them have to do with masking the pain, not about actually working towards the source of the pain and alleviating those issues. And Lisa has a phenomenal story and testimony to taking the time and finding the issues, working on healing the gut, and not only getting her life back, but getting it back in a better capacity than she'd had before. So I wanted to thank her so much for sharing. So let's look at what types of things can cause inflammation. And for a lot of people, this actually can almost feel like fire in their body. So injury is something that can cause inflammation. And we'll talk about that type of response here in a little bit. But injury can cause acute and sometimes chronic inflammation. Food allergies can often be one of the culprits that causes inflammation. We look at sugar. Sugar is highly acidic, highly addictive, and it really throws the body into a stress situation that throws off pH. And anytime we have any of those components, much less all combined together, it can cause inflammation in the body. Gut health is also a huge component, and there's a lot of different parts that can go with that, whether it's caused from medications, exposures to different toxins. Some people, it can tie back to vaccine injuries. Other people, candida. I mean, there's just so many different components, but that can cause huge amounts of inflammation because the body is looking at everything as a toxin, and so it's going in trying to fight it. Surgeries can cause inflammation as well. And then, like I said, environmental allergies. So all of these are different things that can cause an inflammation. Autoimmune issues. That's what Lisa Tucker was talking about. She had a couple diagnoses of autoimmune issues where the body is actually starting to fight itself often, therefore creating a lot of the inflammation. So chronic stress is something that I believe can also cause inflammation. I've seen it for myself and I've seen it for others. And so that's my own personal opinion, because the more we're under stress, the more maybe we can't digest our food when we're trying to eat things that we shouldn't, as in eating when we shouldn't, because the digestive tract is shut down. Or we're stressing, like maybe pushing too hard and training too hard and not giving our body the relief that we need. Or we have chronic stress from always dealing with them hardcore emotional type stuff, and it keeps hitting the body. So when that hits the body over and over again without having relief or adding something like the adaptogens, like from Soul, to challenge it, that can create inflammation in the body. So there is such thing as a healthy inflammatory response. For instance, we get an injury, the body gets a message that there's something that's happened, and it will increase that blood flow, which is going to bring in your white blood cells to fight off infection. We want this to happen. This process brings in heat. So think of circulation. It brings in heat, redness, swelling, and then pain. It's all part of the process when we have an acute type of situation or injury. And then once the injury is repaired, the process ends, an inflammatory process ends. It sends the signal, says, hey, we've got this done. And maybe it starts to back off as the healing occurs, so swelling goes down, the redness dissipates. But the point is the body recognizes it's able to find and put a stop to it. When we have chronic inflammation, literally what happens is we have that low-lying continual symptom that can't and or doesn't shut off. So it keeps having that heat, that redness, that swelling, that pain. And it to me, it's kind of like having that drip of water that just keeps on going steadily. Say it's on a rock over time or a place in the bathtub. After a while, it will eventually wear down that area. It impacts it. That's what chronic inflammation does. It can cause damage to the areas where this is going on long term, and it definitely impacts lives. So, what are some of the symptoms of chronic inflammation? And there are a lot. For instance, bloating and passing gas, because belching, those are all things that have to do with not being able to break down your food. That is showing you that there's inflammatory stuff going on. Burning skin. So whether or not it's like the nerve endings that you're feeling or just this uh, phantom type pain that moves around. Dark circles and or bags underneath the eyes. That to me is when I see that, I immediately know that someone's either dealing with allergies, kidney issues, or adrenal issues. Again, that system is overwhelmed, is trying to deal and get rid of the inflammation. Itchy ears and eyes. One of the ways I could always tell if Troy's kidneys were overwhelmed, which would end up resulting in his blood pressure would eventually go up, is his right ear would get red and hot so fast. And all I would do is mix up about a Soul shot, basically, 4 ounces maybe of a Vital, all in 4 ounces of water, and he'd down it and it would go away. So itchy ears, the heat there, the eyes, diarrhea. So the body's trying to get rid of something. It's inflamed. The same, we could have constipation. So I've seen some very ill people that have had constipation. And because the toxins are being reabsorbed in the system, that's creating inflammation. Cramping, that's another sign because the minerals are being used to deal with what's going on, the stress of things, joint pain or stiffness. So we have those acids that are settling in there. Again, muscle spasms or twitching, a little bit different than cramping. So you can also think that even with a woman on her cycle. In all reality, once we get these women balanced, they don't feel or have those same type of issues that they had before getting balanced and getting rid of the inflammation. We have a lot of fatigue when we're dealing with inflammation. Memory issues. People just don't think so well. Rashes, hives, and acne. I have a case I'm working with right now with someone who moved to the South, and all of a sudden they're having a reaction to the sun. And through conversation, it looks like maybe that their liver got overwhelmed. So we're going to take an approach there, and they're just not being able to deal with what's happening in their system. And they had changed their diet. They'd gone from a very good diet to a really bad diet. Scaly, rough skin. Because remember, your skin is your third kidney. So that is showing too. The kidneys are overwhelmed. They can't keep up and get those acids out. Cough or sore throat. Think of those lymphatics. And again, they're doing their job. The body's not making mistakes here when you have these symptoms. It is its way of challenging and working on getting the inflammation out. Stuffy or runny nose, loss of appetite. Why would you lose an appetite? Because the body's saying, look, I can't handle any more of this being put in here. Let me work and process it. I need the energy to focus on this. Don't give me more food. Fever or chills. Maybe the body's trying to elevate the temperature to burn off the garbage that's causing the inflammation. Headache, that can be because of the liver. We've got puffiness, edema, or water retention that can be tied to the sodium potassium balance. That all getting out of balance there in the cell. That's why Vital is so effective on that. High blood pressure. It can be caused from inflammation. Um, I guess I realized I had joint pain in there twice. So, and insulin resistance. I call it it's kind of like a Mexican standoff. We can end up with the the body not being able to have that exchange with the sugars for the insulin like it's supposed to. Interstitial cystitis, osteopenia, and osteoporosis, because with inflammation, then you can't necessarily remodel or rebuild the bone like you're supposed to. Obesity. I have seen a lot of inflammation shift, sometimes 5 to 10 pounds or more for people initially as we start to balance them when they're having weight issues. And there's so many more. I tried to highlight some of the ones that people are fairly familiar with. So now I'd like to listen to Jody. This is Ashley's mom, Ashley Brandon's mom, that wanted to sharing with us about how Soul helped her.
My name is Jody Gertner, and I was introduced to Soul about 7 years ago. Prior to that, I had severe inflammation and anxiety. After taking my Soul products, I have gotten all of that under control. I truly love my Cinemonte, my Flex, and my Adaptable, along with all my other Soul products. Thank you.
So I really liked that they shared with us a picture of before Soul and then 1 year after being on Soul. You can see that difference in that inflammation leaving the face. It really can be obvious in pictures to people. And sometimes I'll have people take a picture or make certain they've got a current picture to reference on their journey for the changes.
My name is
So this actually is our third oldest daughter, and let's see, it was before Christmas. She'd stepped out the door, had the 2 year old with her, and had the 1 year old in her arm, and missed the step. Was trying to hold on, make sure protect the 1 year old as she went down the steps, which 1 year old had no issues whatsoever, but she did this to her ankle. They took her into the ER, and they said it was an absolute severe sprain, as you can see, because it was taken within minutes before they even got her to the ER. So they sent her home. All they sent her home with was an anti-inflammatory and pain meds, neither of which she wanted to take. Her biggest concern was whether or not she'd broken it. These 4 items here is what she used. She'd called me, and this is what I advised and suggested with her. And within 3 days, she was out of the walking boot that they gave her. She barely ended up bruising. And instead of 6 weeks, in 2 weeks, she had no remnants or any issues of it left, and was going back to, running around with 3 kids again and keeping up with the holidays. So that is huge, showing again, the body did its job, but look how much faster she was able to recover and bounce back. 2 weeks as opposed to 6 weeks, very little bruising, as opposed to they had warned her that her entire ankle and parts of her foot would probably be a really deep blue and purple. So pretty neat. So at this point, I've asked Greg if he would share, and I need to make him a co-host here. I'm guessing you're going to need to do some slides.
Sure, I've got 2 or 3, Valerie.
All right, let me.
And I can relate to Jessica. I think you might remember I had an experience, except for not as noble as hers, because I wasn't holding a 1-year-old. Mine was just simply me misstepping up in the mountains. And I was, I don't know if I told you, I was near the top. So I had like a 2.5 hour descent still. And I knew enough, I heard a pop, and I thought I broke that little bone that comes right down there too. And so I knew enough to tighten my boot so that the swelling couldn't get too big coming down. I didn't have much with me. And I didn't have the roll on, but everything else you showed there, I used. And all I ever got, I actually had a triathlon the next Saturday, Olympic distance, which is you You run 6 miles, you bike 26, and you swim a mile. And believe it or not, I competed in that with no ankle brace, a sliver of black bruise on the bottom of my foot, and that injury, I'd had it many times playing basketball when I was younger. My whole foot would have been black up my ankle. So yeah, it was the same thing. A little swollen at the start. I iced it twice is all, just twice. And the rest of the time I just did cream and oils every 3-4 hours for a couple of days. It was pretty amazing how the body receives the natural goodness, huh?
Absolutely.
But and Valerie did ask me to talk. I guess I should hurry and quickly go to the slides, just 3 of them. She asked me to talk about curcumin because it's a key part of Solflex PI. And I mean, I love it. You know what? I had forgotten that curcumin, turmeric, is in the same family as ginger. I don't know how you say it, Zingzaberry or Zinzaberry. You'll have to tell me how to pronounce that, Valerie, but the same family as ginger comes from. Used a lot in cooking, used a lot in Ayurveda and in Chinese medicine. And I can see why, but more recent, I mean forever, it's known benefits, both mind and body. But in more recent studies, they're studying the neuroprotective and neurohealing benefits of curcumin. So curcumin is just one of the active components. I believe, correct me, Valerie, it's a polyphenol. It's one of the polyphenol the phenol family that's in turmeric. Turmeric has an abnormally high percentage of these, and some of the very best, at least that are known right now, in terms of how potent they are and how well they work in humans. It's an excellent antioxidant, and it does a lot of colon health. And it's funny, does a lot of good in colon health. We don't always think of it that way, but I think of how much it is included in cooking. And who was it that mentioned, Lisa, mentioned that tie between healing her gut and getting on top of inflammation. And curcumin, along with other substances in turmeric, are some of the key reasons why we can do so well so quickly. It is a natural pigment. And these were the studies back in 2012 when we launched the product. And honestly, there are probably many more, but some great studies. One of my very good friends, Valerie knows him as well, Jonas, that's been a struggle with him. And knowing that this is one of the good things that is showing a lot of promise for people that deal with that is somewhat comforting. I just wanted to mention why what we use is a little different in Sol. There are a lot of curcumin now. In fact, a lot of people think that curcumin is a plant. They don't realize that it comes from turmeric, because you even have a name out there, a 2-word name describing curcumin as if it were a plant. I've seen it in lots of articles. And really, it's just a long version of describing this component that's in turmeric. We actually have a highly concentrated, and I'll just tell you what it is. It's a 45% curcumin concentrate in turmeric. The difference in Sol's material is that it's much more expensive because it's much more concentrated extract, and it still comes with the rest of turmeric. Very common now is to pull just curcumin out. But the thing is, that's a little bit inconsistent, because there are similar compounds. I think they're called curcuminoids. Valerie's nodding her head, so I must have said it right. You have related compounds there. And so often in these categories, a type of polyphenol, there's a family of them. And we'll identify one and we'll pull it out and make it almost drug-like. It's natural, but it's just this. And you'll see some of the really great effects of it. But when it's isolated so much, it can start to act like some of the other drug compounds that do not have a lot of the cofactors in the plant, some of which we understand and a lot of which I believe we don't. We're just learning all the time. So it was important to us. We did not choose a curcumin that was isolated. We chose an accentuated curcumin in turmeric along with the rest of the herb. In fact, years ago, Valerie was talking about when she'd been researching. Do you remember, Valerie, as you were dealing with Troy, with something that Troy wanted to work on? Do you remember the name of the other component? You were asking me, hey, can you look into this? We've heard this is in turmeric as well. The name was, it escapes me today and I was looking for it because I wanted to, I don't know if you remember it.
Not right now, I don't.
Yeah, I apologize for that. But there's research on yet another component doing some other really great things in terms of cognitive repair because this deals with inflammation and other factors. I think almost always these deal with inflammation and the antioxidant protective qualities, and that brings about the result. So with it is a unique form of curcumin that we have with the rest of the whole turmeric. We would not have extracted it to the strength we did of curcumin had we not also buffered Solflex with Scutellaria and Boswellia serrata and a very highly concentrated noni, whole fruit noni that is honestly they're just beginning to understand all the ways it helps in inflammation. It's one of the best anti-inflammatories I've seen as well. And then you can mention magnolia bark and grapeseed extract and all the rest that's in Solflex. So because of those is another reason we wanted to also accentuate the curcumin and turmeric because we knew we had lots and lots of plant buffers in there. And now here we are 8 years later, and we do see a very balanced result. It's an underrated digestive help because back to Valerie's comment about inflammation throughout, and particularly in the immune part of us that's in digestion, how much changes when that gets benefited or gets fortified is really, to me, that's, now we're getting onto magnolia. And that's what I want to share with curcumin. But I hope that that's been useful. We've thought about, at times we do enhance soul formulas, and to be honest with you, nothing we've seen in the last 8 years would have us even change it a bit. And we've looked at some of these components and advancements in extracts and the things that are available that are still balanced. It's a fantastic formula, as really as groundbreaking today as it was back when we started it. So hopefully that's helpful.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Right. So it's now time to hear from Tammy Bontrager and how she has worked with inflammation.
Hey guys. Okay, so Valerie had asked if I would share a little bit about my soul journey with pain and inflammation. And I'm happy to do that because I have seen such a remarkable difference in that area of my life. For years, I struggled with just almost debilitating pain in my shoulders, up and down my back, joints. And I had been to many doctors, chiropractors, all that, and finally was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and then eventually thyroid issues, which now looking back, as I've been on the adaptogens, it seems like a lot of that was tied back to inflammation. And so when I started getting that under control, all of those symptoms seemed to just really dissipate and actually just completely go away. So I love Solflex PI, just because I can take that without harmful side effects, really any side effects other than feeling better, because I'm not taking Advil, aspirin, Tylenol, anything like that, which really affects your liver. And there is a lifetime amount that you can take. And so I don't want to blow that out and cause other issues down the way. So I love that I can take the Solflex PI, and it really does bring that inflammation down. Even when I have structural issues, like when my back tends to go out, I can take that, and I'm not worried about taking too much, but it does really take the edge off of the pain. Just that inflammation, once it starts to dissipate, the pain really does go away. Another thing I like to use the PI for is when I do have headaches or just achy. A lot of times I'll take a hot Renew and several PI, and it really tends to make it go away. And I still take 3 to 4 Solflex PI every night on an empty stomach right before bed. And it just seems to help me not be so stiff and sore. My husband also takes it after working out, and we can't say enough good things about it just because of what it's done. We've seen it really just alleviate the pain and the inflammation. So you won't find any Tylenol or Advil or any of that in our home anymore because we pretty much solely go with the PI. So it's awesome. We love it. So hope that helps somebody. Bye.
I love what a game changer it is for people's lives when they find a tool or a way to get rid of the inflammation so they can go back and have such an active life. You would never know that that Tammy ever used to hurt like that when you see her. So when I was thinking about, what are a few of the favorites that we tend to turn to whenever, or when people reach out to me or here in the family, whenever they're dealing with inflammation. And it's kind of neat because most of these were talked about on some level. And, the Solflex AC, the arnica in there is going to work with trauma, and the calendula is just very gentle. And that is, I've used that so many different ways. We've been talking in depth about the PI, the Verizymes with helping to break down the food so it's not as inflammatory to your system, takes part of the burden off. The Vital, because it's one way is it's alkalizing and helps to move the acids out, also helping support the liver so that if it's getting overwhelmed dealing with it. The Cinematic is helps with the blood sugar. And I know I'm really simplifying this, but there really isn't an option because otherwise we'd be here for 5 days. The Confidence, when you've got to clarify, that's one of the things I like because it's working on moving that swelling out. The probiotic, again, because tied back to the gut health, and calming because when you've got a trauma type situation or injury to the area, when it's hot, we want to calm it and settle it down. But the fact of the matter is not virtually, any Sol product will make a difference when it comes to inflammation. And that's why I get so excited about this. And the reason it does is remember what one of our philosophies is or goals, and that is every product has an adaptogen in it. And what do adaptogens do? They help to support the normalization of the body. So it's helped bringing it back into where it's supposed to do. And then we have the benefit of the other plants and herbs that we've added into the formulas to help get the results. You guys can now see why the basics of the Bella Health right there have such a big impact on people. Not only are we focusing on gut health, which we've learned is can be tied to inflammation, we also have in here components to help balance sugars, help to reduce acidity, help support the liver, help reduce stress. It kind of gets to the root of what a lot of inflammatory issues can tie for. Now, a lot of people need to speed up what's going on to help move through. And like I said, any of the products can help being added in. But one of the ones we've talked the most about that most people reach for is that Solflex PI saying for pain and inflammation. And now you can see why people are so shocked when the puffiness starts to disappear. When the pain goes down, they don't realize it was because that area was actually inflamed and maybe holding water, or that their headache goes away because we worked on the inflammation because that Vital's coming in and lessen the load on the liver. I mean, there's so many possibilities here. And it's not that we've ever said, and we aren't never going to come out and say that Sol fixes everything, but what Sol does do with the adaptogens and these formulas is it focuses on the roots of the issue. It focuses on the foundations so that the body can begin to heal. Remember, trust the products, trust your body. The body knows what to do. So I was thinking about this, and this is one of the what I came across for our quote for today. Good health is not something we can buy. However, it can be an extremely valuable savings account. And yeah, a little bit twist of the one I had not too long ago, but I really liked it. Because we're investing in our health, and it is worth it. And it is a very valuable savings account. Now, next week, I'm pretty excited because I will be talking about another one of my favorite topics, which has to do with adaptogens and pregnancy combined. And hopefully going to get to show off a lot of these really cute soul babies that we've had. And just looking forward. So I really hope that you guys will join us.